Welcome to Toffee TV. Today I am joined by half of the dynamic duo, our greatest ever midfield partnership. It is Paul Bracewell. What a player. Paul, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
You keeping well? You're looking good.
Yeah, trying to. There's a few more grey hairs these days, but still trying to stay fit.
Still got the brace swoop though. It's still looking good there, mate.
Yeah, still got the gel on.
I read something today, and you can tell me if this is right. Were you born in Heswell?
Yes.
Never ever knew that. I just thought, for some reason, you were from Stoke. Probably because you play for them.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that with me going to Stoke as an apprentice. But no, I was born in Heswell. Long time ago.
Long time. Not that long ago. How did that move come about then? Obviously, Everton had just won the FA Cup. And how did you move to Everton come about that summer?
Alan got the sack towards the end of the season, and the manager came in, Len Ashurst. He wanted to generate some funds to bring players in. I signed a 3-year contract, went up to Sunderland. They decided to sell me, and obviously with the connection with Howard, the season had finished, and obviously Everton were preparing for the cup final. I was with the under-21s at the time, so we were flying out to I think it was Spain, for the first leg. So I actually met Howard the week before the cup final in a hotel in London with my dad. And this, I've said this before, this probably wouldn't happen anywhere else these days. Agreed everything with Howard and just didn't sign a contract, just agreed everything verbally, signed a blank contract. And then he asked me if I want to go to the cup final, but the following week we had the second leg of the under-21. But obviously delighted, watched the game. We won the under-21 championship, and then managed to sign for Everton.
Not a bad summer then. You won that and we won the FA Cup, so quite a nice summer there. And a debut.
Brilliant, yeah.
An Everton debut against Liverpool at Wembley.
Yeah, obviously joined up pre-season. Went on a pre-season, had a real good pre-season, but was obviously joining a club that had, obviously, like you said, just won the FA Cup. And you could smell that they wanted more, the lads. But like you said, my first game was against Liverpool at Wembley, and actually my last game for Everton was at Wembley as well. So quite a few little scenarios there.
Yeah, we'll come on to that, but yeah, it's weird how that game was pivotal in so many parts of your Everton, certainly your Everton career. You just said the lads wanted more there, obviously, after winning the FA Cup. Could you sense that when you come into it, that this was a team that were trying to be on the up? And obviously, with the addition of you as well that summer?
Yes, and funny enough, when I played at Wembley after the game, Howard actually said to me, he said, a lot of people didn't know you, Brace, but they do know you now. And it was, I'm sure you've spoken to most of the lads in that era, and the first one is always the most difficult one.
Yeah.
And they got the first one, like a manager, a coach, or a player. And once you taste success, you want more. I'd won the European Championships with the under-21, so I'd had a little taste of it. So I knew what it takes to win things, but we just went from strength to strength.
Certainly did. I mean, no one saw the next couple of games coming. We had Spurs at home and lost 4-1 on the opening day after taking the lead, and then we were beaten at West Brom, weren't we, in the midweek, and before we go to Chelsea on the Friday in a televised game in this kit here, actually. And we win the game with a tremendous assist for Kevin Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, that just shows you the belief. Like you said, expectations are really high winning the FA Cup. We had a good pre-season, get beat the first 2 games. But that just showed you, a big, tough game going down to Chelsea. And I suppose that really kick-started the season. And I think we were on a great run after that.
I was going through the results again today. You scored your first league goal against Chelsea at home in a 4-3 defeat in December. And I remember this game was in the Gladys Street. And
again, I was going to say, you're going to ask me, can I remember that one? I can't either.
No, I wasn't. But no, it was your first league goal for us. But that was a mad game. I can remember them in the their yellow kit with the hoops. But what was really interesting about that game was we lost that game in December, and then we didn't lose for 28 games, which, as an Evertonian now, not seeing great times for a number of years, just going back on that run is absolutely berserk to think. 28 games in all competitions, ending with a 1-0 defeat at Nottingham Forest in May.
No, I was just going to say, even in today's terms, if in the Premiership now, if you said we've gone 28 games, that is some run.
Unbelievable. Fighting on all fronts was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, one going on to the second half of the season, then obviously we got on that great run I've just mentioned, 28 games. We had the, Fortuna Sittard getting past them, and then obviously Bayern Munich, which, was an incredibly tough game at the time. And they were probably one of the top teams in Europe, albeit in the Winners' Cup. Still an incredible side, and a great result over there in Munich set us up, didn't it, for that night at Goodison Park?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been mentioned before. I think the way we set up, you're listening to some of the managers and the coaches of the modern era, where a lot of the things that were done in our time, the way we set up to go across there, happy to keep a clean sheet. And to be fair, a lot of people at the time thought that should have been the final. But to go across there and get the result, 70,000 people, and then to bring them back, obviously it gave us a great opportunity, keeping that clean sheet over there.
I mean, what was it like playing in that game at Goodison? I said this to Andy. I bunked off school and got there about, so early, waiting to get in, queue, and it was in the ground about 5:30, and the noise was just unbelievable. When you came out to warm up, the noise was incredible, and what an atmosphere and what a night in our history. The greatest night probably in Everton's history. Yeah,
and to be honest, it was, I played in cup finals, played for England, but, that night was something very special. Even getting to the ground, you've seen the last couple of years, European nights, it was exactly the same. Trying to get through the crowds, the whole place was jumping. And as we've said before, the result was an unbelievable night. And I think everybody, who was there, who wasn't there, who's never told, will always remember that night. I know the players, especially,
What was it when you went 1-0 down at half time, going in that dressing room? Was there a feeling that we can still do that? The calmness of that team had demonstrated all season. Was that still there that night, even though it was the away goal, even though it was against a top team in Europe? Was that belief still there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it goes back to your earlier question when we got beat the first 2 games of the season. That inner belief, it set us up all the way through, and we knew at half time that we were going to win the game. Simple as that. That so much positive. And when you've got winners in that dressing room and you're looking around, so I didn't have any doubt at all we were going to go on and win it, 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, the second half was, it's there, isn't it, in the history books? It was an incredible performance by us, and that second half, Trevor Stevens' goal, the icing on the cake was just, capped a great performance. But you and Mr. Reid had to have a good battle in the middle of that park, didn't you? He's walking around with claret all over his sock, as he likes to say it. But it was a tough game to play in that second half, wasn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, it was only probably 3 or 4 months ago that I actually sat and watched the full game, and it sort of coincided with the film that the lads made.
Yeah.
And I sat there and watched it, from start to finish, and I didn't realise at the time how brutal it was, how physical and brutal it was, and it brought real memories back. But that was literally the first time I'd sat and really watched. I'd watched highlights and bits and pieces, but it was a proper game, proper. Never say die attitude, and the support, as you can imagine. I mean, the atmosphere was unbelievable. You don't really get that. You get it to some degree from watching the game, but actually, if you were there, it was incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable game, and like I say, the greatest game I've ever been to. Was unbelievable. We demonstrated that kind of never say die attitude in the other semi-final against Luton. Obviously 1-0 down with a few minutes left. We'd already done it in the FA Cup, haven't we? With Ipswich at home, and Degsy had scored in the quarter-final last few minutes, and Luton were 1-0 down with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and you wouldn't want anyone over the ball other than Kevin Sheedy in that situation, would you? With that left foot.
Yeah, and again, I think that, if you're at the game, there was an inner belief again. It wasn't panic, no, keep sticking to what we know and we'll get the results. And that's, when you can get that juggernaut going and that belief, it takes some stopping. And I think, the supporters again sucked the ball in. It was another great night. And, people talk about the Invincibles, we never ever thought we were going to get beat.
I don't think we did as fans. It was just on to the next one. And one of the games I want to talk to you about is the Sunderland at home, the 4-1, and that pass from you. But even in that game, I remember being sat with my dad in the Low Bullens, and Ian Wallace scored after about 80 seconds or whatever it was. And I remember saying to me dad, "Oh, that's good. That'll mean we'll play even better." Because it was almost like you wanted us to be poked with the stick. And then the real dominant Everton came out, and that's exactly what happened. But listen, what a pass to Trevor Steven. What a pass. Did you mean it?
Of course. I can remember the pass. I might not remember my first goal, but I remember the pass. But I can assure you, we didn't need poking,
No.
But it was one of those, again, 1-0 down, but then we steamrolled them again, And I think it was the first time I'd played against Sunderland since I left. But no, a lot of people obviously mentioned that, but don't worry, it was well measured.
I'm only messing with you. It was an unbelievable. It was a pass that, if it was made today, would be shown time and time again, and particularly because obviously Trevor goes on and finishes it, which means that it's always remembered, because you did make lots of passes like that playing for us that didn't always end in goals, but that one is just measured to absolute perfection. If them Adidas boots with the tongue hanging over that you wore, they were just made it look better. But no, we obviously go on and we get to the FA Cup final when we get to Rotterdam. But obviously we had the little matter of winning the league, and was the anticipation building up. And then that day of Sheffield Wednesday, and I don't know whether you can see it, we had that kit on here, the yellow one of Chef Webb. But Andy Gray was telling me what a great goal he scored. The scuff at Hillsborough. But Neville Southall that day was incredible, wasn't he?
Yeah, for me, Nev, at that time was, for me, the best goalkeeper in the world, and I still stick by that. Unbelievable. But there were some world-class players. And again, in today's, that final week, we're going for the treble, and again, it's, if we'd have won that treble again, there's not many teams have done that, but we were geared, we were geared for it. And it was a little bit like you said before, won the league, move on, next one, Cup Winners' Cup, move on, next one. And that's the mentality that we had at the time. What
was the QPR game like, the home game? So obviously when the day we finally won it, so to speak, it was confirmed. There was a big crowd, wasn't it? And at Monday, great day. What was that like to play in?
Yeah, again, it was, we'd won the league, and I know the lads, unbelievable day, but, our thought process was, where's the next one?
On to the next one.
One's coming? Next one. Yeah, done that, fantastic, in the bag, And that's how it was,
Yeah, man, you could see with it. That's why that team was so good. That mentality of, let's get the next one done, shone through. Andy Gray was saying the Rapid Vienna game, there was just a belief in the dressing room that they weren't even on the same page as what we were, and it kind of bore out that way, didn't it, when you watch the game back? We never had a save in the first half, but other than that, they done nothing until obviously Krankel scored late on, but it was a superb performance, wasn't it, from you and the lads? Yeah,
and again, it wasn't until I saw the film, in the film that showed you a lovely clip of us keeping the ball and moving the ball and stuff like that. But again, 2-0 up, they go and get one, and all of a sudden we raise it again 3-1. And again, it was next one, move on. Another big game coming up. And when you're playing games like that, you want the next one to come as well.
Do you think if we'd have had another day, another 2 days, we'd have beat United on the Saturday?
I think there was a lot of talk afterwards in terms of had the games caught up with us, and went into extra time. It was a last minute of extra time, and to beat Neville from there, was some going. If we'd have finished with 100% beating them in the replay, but it wasn't to be. It was a cruel end to an unbelievable season, really.
Yeah, it was so frustrating, wasn't it? Because, as a fan, I can say, I think if we'd have had another day, I think a day's rest, I think we'd have beaten them, because we were just better than them. We'd already beat them, haven't we, in the league? We beat them 5-0 at Goodison. We'd knocked them out the League Cup. We were a much better side, and I think Wembley coming on, because Andy Gray was saying you got back late on or early hours of Thursday, and then Friday was about rest and recuperation, and then the game was the Saturday. So you think if one more day, maybe we'd have just had that little bit of sharpness there.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, that's why when you talk about winning trebles, that if you win that, you never even mention about the treble and things like that. You know what I mean? So, and that's why it's so special if you can win that treble. I mean, to win the double was unbelievable, but to get the treble, we wouldn't be talking about the rest and the recovery and another day. We'd be saying fantastic. Next one, Good.
What an attitude. What an attitude. No excuses, eh? Just that was the way it was. Obviously, that year was a great year personally for you as well. You had 3 England caps that year as well, hadn't you? And rightly so. And many were talking about the World Cup. We'll come on to that in a bit. But the European ban obviously came a couple of weeks after that, after Rapid Vienna. And do you think that team could have gone on and won the European Cup?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But we'll never know. We'll never know. But it was one of those where, we'd won 2, we nearly won 3. Charity Shield again, we won. So we'd have gone again, 100%. And it was just a shame. It was out of our control. And who knows? Obviously, the team broke up. And it would have been lovely to stay together and had a real good go at it,
I'm sure you remember, we certainly do as Evertonians, was New Year's Day 86 when you got the injury. Did you know at the time did you know at the time when it happened that it was a bad one, or was it just an impact challenge? It was Billy Whitehurst, wasn't it, who caught you?
Yeah, I knew it was bad. We got on the coach in those days, had a couple of injections just for the pain, and then in those days we went to a nursing home. So we travelled back, went to the nursing home. I was in there for a couple of days. The swelling settled down. I had X-rays and scans, and there was no break. So in some respects, I was relieved and managed to get back trying to play. But I was never the same. And up until that summer, I was keeping my fingers crossed to go to the World Cup. But deep down, I knew I had a real problem with the ankle over 2 years and 6 operations later. But I must say, in terms of Everton as a club, I've seen the good times, but I also saw the bad times where after 5 operations and, a lot of questions asked, I've been out for nearly 2 years, went to see the top specialist in the country in London, and he said, look, I don't want to operate. He's had 5 operations, and to be fair, the doc at the time, Doc Irvin, who's the best guy in the world? And there was a guy called Roger Mann in San Francisco. And literally within 2 days, I was on a plane with my dad, and we flew out to see this guy in San Francisco. I was due to be there for 3 days. First day was an assessment. Second day was looking at my scans. And the third day he was going to come up with a conclusion. So on the third day, they found a piece of bone, and which had been there for the last 18 months, had been growing. And he said he would operate, spoke to the club and they said, yeah, fine. And he operated, and I stayed out there for another 5 days and then came back. So, and it was one of those moments where when I woke up, because I'd been out for so long, and it got to the stage where some people were doubting whether, after 5 operations, was he going to get back? And I always remember bringing the bottle back with a piece of bone. And I remember Howard at the time, after my first operation, he asked to see me. I went in on crutches, on my plaster, and sat down and said, Brace, I want to offer you a new deal, never materialised, but again, that tells you what sort of club and manager they were at the time. They looked after me brilliantly, and I managed to get back playing, after 2.5 years, which was a long time in anybody's career,
Just go back to that 86 season after that, though, because when I was going through the games, obviously, you played 3 games after New Year's Day. You had 3 games out. You come back against Blackburn in the FA Cup. We beat them 3-1, and you were in the team again, and then you were out for a couple of games. But you played so many games till the end of the season that obviously you know, there was an assist in an FA Cup semi-final for Graham Sharp's volley with your socks around your ankles. So how were you getting through those games? Because you were playing most of the games, and then it was just missing the odd game, or, you know, how were you getting through? Were you in pain, or was it injections all the time?
It was a mixture of both. And if I jump back forwards, when I found the piece of bone, what happened was, when I first did the injury in the 86, the piece of bone had flaked off and was actually growing. So when I was getting up in the morning and trying to move, the pain was excruciating. So once I got it moving and the bone was moving, I managed to get through. But sometimes at half time, I always remember a game at Anfield where I come in and I was struggling to walk. Rats has come after me. There's nothing wrong with you. I went and people talk about going through the pain barrier. I went through the pain barrier, but it was, for me, there was only one person who knew how bad it was, and that's why it was very much stop, start, stop, start. I didn't used to train a lot. I would ice it at half time. I would ice it after the game, and then just really get myself up. But it was never going to go away, and that's why at the end, you know, I had to get it sorted. And I was obviously with Everton, but also with the World Cup as well, you know.
I seen it. You come off for Anfield, didn't you? We won 2-0 when Lineker scored. You had to come off in that, but then you're back in the team and stuff coming towards the end of the season. We're in, like I've just said, you set the winner up for Sharp in the semi-final. We're in the FA Cup final again. We're going for the league, and then we had two. Everybody talks about the Oxford United game when Les Phillips scored and Gary Lineker missed quite a few chances that night. And the reason why people go on about that was because he never really missed a lot of chances. So I think that's why it's always highlighted. But there was a game at Forest, though, 3-4 days before that, and we drew 0-0 in that one. And that was an opportunity, wasn't it? I think we forget that. As I don't know how you view it, and you played in the game, so you could tell me differently. But as fans looking back, I remember after that Forest game thinking, well, that was a tricky game, but as long as we beat Oxford, we're all right. And yet the two of them not winning either of those games essentially cost us the title, didn't it?
Yeah, and the old saying, there's never an easy game, you know. And you talk about Gary, and that was one of Gary's strengths. It never bothered him if he missed a chance. He'd keep going and keep going and keep going. And sometime over a season, you know, that's why to win the league is the pinnacle, you know. And like I said, those two games, you know, did cost us in the end.
What was it? Obviously, Liverpool end up winning it, and then we've got the week building up to that, the cup final again. And how were you approaching that? Were you worried about the ankle going into that, or were you just switched on thinking, you know, this is ours, let's beat these and let's get that trophy?
Yeah, very much so. And I'd sort of begin to sort of what was good and what was bad for me. Obviously, the manager knew in terms of my sort of training regime in terms of getting myself ready. But I also, like I said, at the back in mind, I knew, and there's only one person who knew, and it was me. I knew my body, and I knew I wasn't right. But again, injection, whatever, you know, you're not going to miss a cup final. But at the same time, I was always going to get picked on merit, and it wasn't through sympathy or anything like that. So I knew, you know, I had to produce a performance.
You were playing well enough, because, like you said, Howard wouldn't have picked you otherwise. You just obviously weren't at 100% maybe, but even Paul Bracewell's 98%, 95% was still good enough. But just when you think back to that cup final, obviously Lineker scored, and from a fan's perspective, Sheedy misses a good chance just after half time, nearly 2-0. But we were in control of it, and that was against them. They were a great side. Obviously, they just won the league, but we were in control of the game. In my opinion, was that the feeling as a player on the pitch, that we were on top in the game, or did you not really let yourself think like that?
Yeah, you always know you need a second goal. You know what I mean? Especially against a good side like that. And we needed that second goal. Like you said, if Sheeds gets that, it's a different game altogether. But again, you know, we didn't win, you know. And for me, it was a killer. Second cup final, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely nightmare end to it, wasn't it? But then, that was the last game you played then, wasn't it, for 2.5 years, which is... So you went away and had an operation. What were they operating on? If they didn't know where the bone was, what were they operating on? Just your ankle? Well,
what happened is the initial scan found some bone. So they go in, remove it. You're 6 weeks in plaster. You come out, you do your rehab, and then from the medical point of view and from my point of view, oh great, done it. and then all of a sudden you get back to a stage and you break down, rescan it, or there's some more bone in there, so you go back in, another part, do that, you have your 6 weeks, you come back out. So the whole process, you know, every time they went in, there was an issue or there was a problem. But that takes time. And like I said, after the 5th one, when I went to America, the guy said straight away, you're scanning, we've got far superior scans over here. And I could see on the screen, they picked it up just like that. Now, in hindsight, if I'd have gone there from day one, it might have been a totally different picture. But like I said, I was lucky enough, the club stuck by me, and we eventually got to the bottom of it. And I think for me, psychologically and mentally, all the pain and grief I went through, because as you rightly said, lads are saying, well, you look all right, you're playing all right, you know, and I'm saying, it's killing me, you know, mate, coming off at half time and things like that. So, but they also knew, like you said, that, you know, there must be something wrong if Brace is, if he's saying there is, you know. So it was a long 2.5 years, I can assure you. But, you know, going back to, you know, the film we did recently, it was an unbelievable. I mean, I got a mug the other day, and it was 35 years since the Bayern Munich game, which was an unbelievable memory, you know. And I think, you know, that group of players will always be, will always come back together. I think even 10, 15 years, if there's an event, I'm sure they'll always try and get back together. Yeah. So much respect for each other.
We were, me and Ped, who do this, were at the St George's Hall for the Howard's Way film, and seeing it all back together. We spoke to you briefly before it, but seeing it all back together was incredible. Incredible from a fan's perspective to see that team, and to hear the respect that you all have for each other and the love that you all have for each other is I think it's quite unique. I know, obviously Kevin Ratcliffe wasn't it, but everybody else was there. John Klinkard was there, still looking sharp all these years later. But just quickly on the film before I get back to your return, it's a really well put together film by Rob Sloman. He's done a brilliant job with it. But did it make you feel proud again once you've seen all of that, the way it was put together, to be part of that history of Everton Football Club?
Yeah, I mean, obviously jumping back to that night, you would have stayed after, when we did the Q&A after. Yeah. And, you know, obviously that didn't go out, but I know people that had come to watch the film who didn't really know the players, but watched the film and then sat and listened to the players, and they said it was unbelievable to put that name and face and the characters on there, you know, because that wasn't scripted, you know, and what you saw after was what you saw on the screen. And that for me I thought was brilliant. And then going back to, I forgot now what you asked me.
It's a great film, isn't it, first and foremost? But does it make you proud to be part of that bit of the history of the club and having that experience as a player with those lads?
Yeah, I mean, when Rob come on and they decided to do it, 100%. And it was, Ken Richardson came to my house, and I hadn't seen Kev for a while, and we did some bits and pieces together. But having done it and filmed it, we didn't really know what it was going to look like until it actually came out. So we were a little bit like you, the anticipation, what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like. And I thought it was brilliant, you know, from sort of doing our bits and pieces and how they put it all together. I think it's a really, really good film. Really enjoyed it, you know. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Loved every minute of it, and it's quite emotional as well. And when you look back and you see, particularly 85, you see Reedy's shot at the post in the cup final at 0-0, little things you forgot about, and you think, we're so close to being even better. We've been an incredible team, but so close to being even better, that it is quite emotional. And obviously, the only sad thing about it was that Howard wasn't there to have seen all you lads back together in the one room, and him to be there as well, because, you know, you see the way he looks at that team, and he absolutely loved it. And that's one sad element, that he wasn't around to see it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was, but you know, he had so much respect from the players. You know, I'm sure he'd be looking down. And I went to his funeral. You know, it was a fantastic. I mean, funerals, you know, are sad occasions, but I think with him it was a celebration. You know, and I think that's how he would have wanted it as well. But that, again, that just shows you, you know, what was created there when you watch the film and you see the crowds, and it was an unbelievable period of the club. But, you know, Everton's a great club, you know, and, you know, I've played for some big clubs But Everton will always be, once and always, but will always be my club.
You come on as sub in the Mercantile Trophy against United at Old Trafford in August for about 15 minutes, and then it was a while later. But was your first start back at Anfield in the league game? Is that right? After you come back?
I'm not. You'll know better than me.
Yeah, your first start. So your last game before the injury was the cup final at Wembley, '86, and your first start back in the league. And his first start for the club was on 11th of December 1988 at Anfield in a 1-1 draw. And what's interesting about that is we've only had 2 penalties in 90 odd years at Anfield, but we had that one that day when Wayne Clark scored. But it's mad, isn't it, how you were out for so long and the first game back is Anfield against that lot.
Yeah, my first debut was at Liverpool as well. When I was a kid at Stoke.
Stoke.
Like you said, it's crazy.
First Everton game at Wembley against Liverpool. Yeah. Last game for 2.5 years against Liverpool. First game back. Yeah. But that must have been an emotional moment for you, though, starting a game, having, like you said, 5 operations in, thinking, am I done? Will I play again? And then 2.5 years later, you're back starting in the Merseyside derby at Anfield.
Yeah, and that's why all the hard work and the support you've had makes it worthwhile. I mean, you speak to anybody. I mean, I went to play on until I was 37, and I missed a big chunk. I think 700 odd games. So I would have hopefully have played another couple hundred games as well, So people say play as long as you can. And I was very much like that. All I wanted to do was play football, get back fit and try and play pain-free, which was the first time in a long time that I was able to do it. There was 50% less movement in one ankle than the other. But, my game had changed. It had to change. But like you said, I went on and managed to play till I was 37. Never passed a medical after that, as you can imagine. But still managed to play the games,
Incredible. But going to Wembley then for that cup final, what was that like as a player? Was it focused on we want to beat these, or was it a difficult one? Because obviously you played in FA Cup finals before. The last one you'd played in was against Liverpool. This one was against Liverpool. As a fan, I felt like a bit guilty for wanting us to win it, of what's gone on. But as a player, I mean, that stopped, don't get me wrong, that stopped once the game started. I wanted us to win. But as a player, was it difficult? Was it just a case of, no, we want to win this now because we're here?
What was great to see was the mixture again of the blue and the red. Total respect for each other, for the game. And I think it was, it was for the whole city, really, for what it had been through. And it was, again, it was a difficult game to play in, but, make no mistake, we wanted to win. They wanted to win as well. But again, I think the build-up was different, on both sets. It wasn't a normal, build-up to a cup final. Very conscious and very respectful of what had happened on that day,
Yeah, definitely. And that you ended up coming off a Stuart McCall that day.
Yeah.
Were you struggling with injury, or was that a tactical thing from Colin?
No, I think it was tactical. Off you come, on you come. But again, it was not a great finish either,
No, I mean, McCall comes on and scores one worldie, didn't he? Scored 2 goals, but obviously we lost the game. And this is what's really weird about it. That was the last appearance you made for Everton. So 2 FA Cup finals against Liverpool resulted in us not seeing you once for 2.5 years after it, and the other was forever. So it kind of just completed your first game for Everton was at Wembley against Liverpool, and your last game for Everton was at Wembley against Liverpool. It's such a strange thing.
Yeah, and another strange thing is I eventually went back with Sunderland as captain against Liverpool. For my 4th one.
In '92.
Yeah. So they came back up again. So it was surreal, definitely.
Can I just ask you very quickly about Carlo Ancelotti and the appointment? Were you surprised Everton were able to get him, and do you think it's a good appointment, having, obviously, you've been first team coach and stuff in the Premier League, so you know how difficult it is, a job to do?
Yeah, to be honest, I first met him probably about 4 or 5 years ago when he was at Real Madrid. I went across and met him. Whether he remembers that, I'm not sure. But I spent a couple of days there. He was brilliant. A lot of time for me. Really enjoyed his company. But, Everton's a big club. People mustn't forget, they've gone after a top manager. And if he can bring back the glory days, I'm sure with the backing he's got, he'll do that. He's got a great track record. And Everton is, like I keep saying, Everton's a big club. So they're ambitious like they always have been. So to go and get the best people and the best players, that's what Everton do.
Just very quickly, you were spent 2 days with him. What kind of a coach is he? Does he stand back or tactician or what?
He's very much organised. He's at a stage of his career. I remember working with Dick Advocat, who Dick was very similar. He would come out, just his presence, standing there. But make no mistake, he doesn't miss anything. He does not miss anything. If he sees anything, he'll step in. He's got good staff around him, knows what he wants. But make no mistake, he's the manager.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Paul, listen, thank you so much for taking time out your night to have a chat. It's been brilliant, reminiscing, and obviously reminded me what it was like when we were amazing, and you were very much part of that. And just look after yourself. Keep that gel on the hair because it still suits you.
Smashing, lovely. My pleasure.
Cheers, Paul. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Smashing. Thank you.
Take care, mate.
Cheers.
Big thanks there to Paul Bracewell for taking time out of his night to join us. Fantastic midfield player and absolutely brilliant to chat with him there and reminisce, like I've just said, reminisce. Make sure you check out the Howard's Way film, Paul. Very much part of that as well. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and if you want more videos like this and more interviews like this, join us over on Patreon. Thanks for watching. See you later.